you as a doctor, do you agree with this practice? Because they say 100 people can attend a marriage, but not 101 or 120. Is it just we are taking a precaution namesake, or does it mean anything?
I mean, it's 100 is always an arbitrary number. So, whether 99 people attend or 101 attend, that's really not a huge difference. But I guess you've got to put boundaries somewhere, and they've magically come up with this number 100 to maybe allow enough socialization amongst the crowd, but not allow enough for Delta to be spreading at a pace that our public health system can't really cope up here.
If I may intervene for a moment, those restrictions are in force in India too, sir. Those restrictions are in force in India too. Right now also, not more than 50, not more than 100. We all have our questions up with it. But then let's take it as something that's been done for our safety, for our good.
I'm going to highlight who doesn't know Sandhya. Our star Sandhya, she was here last time as well, always contributing to the community. General practitioner, a YouTube star. It's all yours, Sandhya.
Namaste to everyone, and thank you, Primala, for organising this session. Now, I'd just like to go back and highlight a very important point that Dr. Singh made, which I think everybody needs to realise, and that is, although Omicron, thankfully, has proven to be mild, first thing, understand that we are in a different situation now in 2022 to when we were in 2020 and when we were in 2021. The only reason it is mild is because the vast majority of the countries which are facing this infection have been vaccinated, or if not vaccinated, they have been previously infected. So that's one important thing. Mild is only in the context of vaccination. Second very important point that Dr. Singh made was that on an individual level, Omicron has not been, thankfully, making a major impact. But the biggest impact, and the impact from the beginning of this pandemic, was the impact on the whole of society. And the weakest link, the most important thing that we have to protect, is the healthcare system. New Zealand has one of the smallest ICU capacities per proportion of the population in any of the Western countries, significantly less ICU capacity compared to Australia, which is where I'm from. Now, I think that it is easy sitting at home to point judgment on whatever the government is doing, and I can say that every single doctor who has lived this pandemic and, not only worked from a clinical point of view, but also to educate the public. It is in our interests that we preserve, the healthcare system and just be patient, because, there's no point rushing to, open things and just a lot of other countries didn't have a choice. New Zealand has that choice. And I am hopeful that we will actually come out of this a lot better than many other countries, because the Omicron wave is hitting us with very high vaccination rates. We've got 65% of the people who are already eligible for their boosters have already got it. And we've also started vaccinating children. And also schools are going back. So we are going to see more and more spread. So I think, yes, it is frustrating, but we have to make some boundaries so that we don't have exponential spread. And a lot of work is being done behind the scenes to get prepared. Exactly what Dr. Singh said, the impact in India has been less during this wave because they have been prepared. And look at New Zealand, we've had so much time to learn. And the good news is that we are listening and we are learning and we are ready to implement.
Wonderful, Sandhya. Thank you. A lot of concern about safety in children with the vaccines. There are quite a few parents here, and there are some teachers here as well. So do you want to say a few words about that, Bhavna?
So children's vaccinations, very important. I think the question, Primla, might have been, is what is the safety risk and profile of the children's vaccines? There's been studies done, of course, and for New Zealand to have approved it to be safe in children means a lot, because I think New Zealand's always been in the past quite slow to say yes unless there's been enough evidence. Sandhya has mentioned that for New Zealand to be ready for Omicron to hit us in a big wave, the more people who are vaccinated, the better off the country will be. And one of the important things is around the children. The children are less likely to get Omicron overall compared to adults, but they still can, and they can spread it. And it is important to protect them as well. The vaccine is very safe. No vaccine is harmless, but the Omicron is more harmful compared to what the vaccine has to offer. All vaccines have risks associated with them, but out of the thousands and thousands of vaccines already delivered to children, there doesn't seem to be any negative side effects so far. So overall, the risk profile is actually really, really good.
A very important point about children's vaccination, I just wanted to add, is that getting the vaccination for children has been shown to give a 90% risk reduction in developing the multi-system inflammatory disorder, which can happen in children about 4 to 6 weeks after they get an infection, even if the infection is mild. Also, 1 in 3 adults can go on to have long COVID, and about 10% of children can go on to have long COVID. And you don't know whether that child who's had a mild infection, what the long-term consequences could possibly be. So vaccination 100% is important, not only to protect the child, but to protect other vulnerable family members at home who they can come home and transmit it to. And also looking forward, because this is the new normal for us, if your child is double vaccinated, you're going to be a lot happier for them to continue going to school in a situation where there are recurrent outbreaks. And stop focusing just on Omicron, because this pandemic is not over yet. As Dr. Singh said, the nature of the virus is to mutate, and we can't just expect that it's always going to be a mutation that's necessarily going to be less lethal. That is not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination. Resistance is not futile is a very important message. The primary way this virus is transmitted is through airborne spread. So when you're thinking about risk mitigation, it's really important to think about shared air. So for example, going back to the 100 people at a wedding, if you have 200 people at the wedding, that's a lot more COVID aerosol particles that people are emitting, that even if you've got a mask on, eventually you can inhale enough viral particles to lead on to an infection. So these masks and having good ventilation, whether it's an open window with a fan pointing outwards so that you ensure cross ventilation, and very importantly, starting to invest in something like this portable air purifier, which incidentally, one portable air purifier, which we spent $300 here at $315 at PB Tech on this unit, is cheaper than one PCR test.
Great, thank you. The question was, I want to have a party at home. What do we do about that? What is the preparation I should do as a good host? And I'm going to get Sandhya in here because I wanted to talk about, it's going to be hot. So when do I switch on my aircon and when I should switch it off? Should I leave it on? Sandhya?
Okay. Excellent question. Yeah, look, this is, and I've done a video on this if you want to look. It's on my YouTube, which is the last talk I did with Primla, which is managing risk in a living with COVID world. And everybody has to understand that there is no such thing as zero risk anymore. But by using the multi-layered strategy that we have available to us, and I would say that you have to think of it as a vaccines plus approach. And the countries that have done the best with managing COVID and getting back to normal life, you've got to look at countries like South Korea and Japan, where despite, this Omicron being omnipresent everywhere, they've actually managed really well. And where they have managed would come down to the fact that they have excellent discipline with things such as masking, which, as I explained to you, not only does it protect each other, it is in our best interest to reduce on every occasion the number of COVID aerosols we are inhaling because of reduced dose correlates with a less severe infection. So, and the other thing to remember is that it's not a case of, okay, I'm out to get my Omicron infection and then I'm done with, because in many countries, people are getting infected again and again and again, you know, second or third time, and within a short frame, like 4 weeks later. So unfortunately, it's a new normal that we have to embrace. Number one, when we look at our vaccines, so it's vaccination, number one, and getting your booster as soon as possible. So if I'm having my party, first of all, I want to know that the maximum number of people who I'm inviting are vaccinated, you know, if they are eligible to do so. And if there is anybody that's vulnerable, then I need to know. Number two, if you're having a party, you don't necessarily want to, you know, you're going to be eating, so masks are going to be a little bit difficult. So if you can have that party outside, have it outside, because it's all to do with, you know, dilution of these particles with fresh, filtered or flowing outdoor air. So fresh air means having opening, first of all, being outside is better than being inside if you can. If you can't be outside, then having as many windows and doors open and ensuring cross ventilation. When it comes to your fan, you know, just a little fan like this pointing out, you know, so the fan is pointing, facing out the window will help with cross ventilation. In terms of air conditioning, you do not want your air conditioning mode on recycle internal air, because that's going to increase your risk. Now, there's two different types of air conditioning units. You have your HVAC, which is heating, ventilation and air conditioning. Those units, you know, you can actually use ventilation, but other just standard home ACs don't have that. They tend to, you know, recirculated internal air. So it's always preferable. I mean, you could have the AC on, but you'd want to have the windows open as well. Even if it's winter, even if it's cold, even the UK did a ad campaign where they said opening the windows for even 10 minutes every hour will help reduce the viral load of that actual room. So you've got to imagine everybody's releasing this fine spray. Okay, this is just some Glen 20, which will help clean your surfaces, which is good if somebody's actually infected. But rather than madly cleaning your surfaces, you've got to shift your thinking into cleaning shared air. And I think there hasn't been enough on these portable air purifiers, which, you know, are affordable. You can use in your workplace and at your home if you've got a party and you are inside. They are effective in filtering 99.97% of viral particles that are emitted in a room. So they are an excellent extra layer of protection and will protect everybody. And it's not just, and clean air is not just about COVID, it's about all sorts of illnesses. I mean, to be honest, in the last 2 years or since the pandemic, I have not actually come down with a viral illness, touch wood. Whereas every year when I was practicing, when I didn't wear masks, I would have a terrible infection at least once or twice a year, because we just purely didn't, you know, that purified all those, you know, viruses or bacteria that I'm inhaling when I'm examining people in a small unventilated room. Now I see patients, I have my mask, the patient has their mask. The window, I have an open window, plus I have an air purifier, which the air purifier placement is best away from a window in the area of the room where there is, you know, less, you know, clean air that's coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, these are really important tools. So we don't have to feel like, you know, we're powerless. There is a lot in our power.
Wonderful, Sandhya. I know you are full, you're a fountain of knowledge, and it's very, yeah, it's amazing how much you can deliver. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's for open to all doctors. I mean, this is something that, because my wife, she's a scientist and she works in Douglas Pharmaceuticals, and I've heard about the mRNA technology, which is not very well tested. I mean, right now it's pretty much an experimental mode. mRNA is not a very understood you know, way of developing vaccine compared to the other traditional methods. So I have two questions here. One is, do we have enough information these days to say that, okay, this is safe for, I mean, I know the general clause that, you know, you can never rule out everything, but is it safe? And the other question is, now since, you know, New Zealand only had Pfizer initially, so I've gone through, let's say, 2 doses of Pfizer. But if I can avoid Pfizer, because for me, Pfizer as a company itself, I don't believe them totally. I have my concerns with Pfizer. Can I, since New Zealand has now opened up for, let's say, Covishield in India, which is AstraZeneca, am I okay to go for my booster with AstraZeneca? So it's a twofold question.
It wasn't rushed. This technology wasn't rushed. The difference in this pandemic is the whole world was affected at once. And for this, we have to thank the USA and the, the funding. There was, miracles can happen in scientific research with the correct funding. And now you are looking at a world where more people have received the vaccination safely than people who haven't. So, blanket statements like, I don't like Pfizer, mRNA technology is not researched. This is clearly wrong. This is misinformation. This vaccine is safe. Yes, a small proportion may go on to have side effects. There has been too much overinflation of the supposed risk of myocarditis, which is extremely low, affects perhaps younger males more. I have seen in my own practice here in New Zealand, if you, have any symptoms of whether it's chest pain or a racing heart or any side effects, we are reporting every single side effect on that CALM, notification. And most of these, even if we've gone to, go and do an ECG, go and do blood tests to check their heart muscle markers, they self-resolve. I have spoken to cardiologists and we, check them. The one case where the patient did, and it has been proven that they did have myocarditis, the 26-year-old gentleman that did die, he had very significant symptoms which he ignored. Now, that is very unfortunate, and perhaps it points to not enough, public health education around it. But this, and as to your question is whether you would like to get a third vaccine with Covishield, yes, you can.
Yeah.
The evidence has shown that, the mRNA as a booster is actually gives you a better coverage than even some of the other.
If I may put in something here.
Yes, SP, and then I'll let Bhavna to step in, please.
20 years ago, when SARS, MERS, none of these had been heard of, I've seen a 27-year-old paras officer, a paratrooper, the healthiest of the healthy, die of a viral myocarditis.
Yeah.
Right? So these things have been happening all the time. It's just that they were not highlighted. Any viral particle can infect the myocardium or the pericardium or various parts of the body. We as doctors know that. It's just that the general population did not know because these cases were so rare. Today, the media is picking up rare cases and highlighting them. So I don't think those cases should deter us from going in for vaccination. To the person who asked the question, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Suhas?
Suhas. It's always risk versus benefit, Suhas.
And actually the risk is higher if you get infected with COVID of having myocarditis than with the vaccine. The reason the ratio differed in New Zealand is because the government did such a good job of protecting New Zealanders.
Forget
we had zero COVID.
Forget myocarditis. COVID pneumonia, which is so much commoner, will get you.
So sometimes information can make you a little bit more anxious and nervous. Good on you for asking the questions.
But also the younger age group, 5 to 11, are getting a much smaller dose.
Thank you. So I'll close this question with Bhavna. Your comment, please, Bhavna.
Agree with everything everyone has said. mRNA technology has been around for a long time, but there was the final piece of the mRNA technology we have now that was missing until COVID came. And it is due to countries putting loads of money into it and loads of creative minds, which created the idea of encasing the mRNA in a bubble. So in the past, we've had mRNA. It hasn't been successfully used in vaccinations until someone thought about putting it into a lipid bubble, they say. And the lipid bubble has allowed this mRNA technology, which is we've had for a while, to actually make a difference, to actually work, take that last step towards being a great vaccination.
So in simple terms, Bhavna, you're trying to say the mRNA is in a nice, cozy bubble, and that's why it's working, right?
That's why it's working, and that's why
So
it's
because it's very unstable on its own. And that's why it's very cold temperatures.
Exactly. So that lipid bubble is so important, and it is working. And everyone's quite correct. For children, I think all parents should ask questions. I think it's really important that they understand it. But with the COVID itself in children, the illness itself is more likely to cause that long COVID that Sandhya has talked about, which includes things like inflammation of the lining of the heart, inflammation of so many more organs in the body. So in actual fact, risking a small, tiny risk of giving a COVID vaccine to kids is going to improve their health long term overall, rather than getting an illness which will give them long-term complications.
Thank you for that, Bhavna. And I've found that in my practice as well, because I do look after a lot of pediatric patients. I think most of the parents are not really against the vaccine, but they've just heard a lot of misinformation, like, inflammation of the heart, or a lot of parents saying that they've heard of so-and-so and the child fainted. So I think if we just have a very simple, informed discussion that these are the side effects to be expected, these are the ratios of how likely these are to occur versus the risk of getting the COVID. I've been able to convert most of my patients and get their children vaccinated as well. And I think I've been giving them my example, because I've got an 8-year-old who's going to school next week, and I was just so glad that the vaccinations came out just before he went to school. So he's had his one on Friday, and I've just been watching him for symptoms of any fever and anything, and he's handled that really well. So I'm sure most of the kids do really well with the vaccination dose, because it is a smaller dose. So I didn't really see a high fever or any other symptoms. So definitely encouraging most of the patients.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Suhas puts the thumbs up. Thank you, Suhas. A question to Bhavna. I was infected, I had COVID, I came COVID positive, I haven't had my booster yet. What do I do? Shall I have a booster? Yes. When?
Yes.
How long should I wait?
So as an adult, you should get your booster 8 weeks after 4 months in New Zealand after you.
How long should I wait?
So as an adult, 4 months in New Zealand after your second vaccination. It is important to get your booster even if you've had a mild COVID, because as Sandhya has pointed out earlier as well, these different strains can reinfect us. And so, yes, I would go ahead with the booster. It is 4 months now after your second vaccination. Some people have had 3 doses if they've had some underlying medical conditions, and so then it's 4 months after your 3rd dose.
Actually, that question that you're asking is when you've actually got infected, but you were due for your booster. Each country is changing their rules, but we haven't come to that situation here in New Zealand, but we will. ATAGI in Australia is now recommending, as long as you're recovered and you finished your isolation period and you don't have any more symptoms, then you can go ahead and get your booster. What I did read for children, if they're in that circumstance where they, at this stage children aren't getting boosted, but if they get infected between getting their first vaccine and their second vaccine, you may want to wait 4 weeks post-recovery, because generally if you are to get multi-system inflammatory disorder, it will manifest itself 4 to 6 weeks after the original infection. But each country has, different, rules around this.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's the general consensus.
What I see here is Tanvir has written 2 weeks post-isolation of COVID positive case. If COVID positive, 2 weeks after, get your booster. Would that be consensus? And what I'm adding here is from Sandhya, as long as you're symptom-free. If you're well,
Symptom-free. Yeah.
Then go ahead and do it. COVID has entered my home. I'm self-isolating. And I've got others, there's a chain reaction going to happen. Others are going to be infected. Now, what do I do with my rubbish? How do I dispose of my rubbish?
If a family member tests positive, then do everything in your power to protect the rest of the family members. So if you do have the option of isolating in a room and you have your own bathroom, then that would be ideal. And as I've talked about, ventilation is really important. Everybody in the family in common areas should be wearing a very good mask. And I've just done a video on masking and explaining the difference between the N95s. And it would be good to get yourself some KN95.
Sorry, Sandhya, I'm interrupting you there.
Yeah.
COVID is already in the house. People are infected. How do you get rid of the rubbish?
So getting rid of the rubbish, so you want to have a good stock of plastic bags. So the infected person, obviously, you keep their rubbish within their room, wrap everything, in that plastic bag, their tissues or whatever, and then you would just dispose of it, tied up into the, regular bin.
Yes.
In terms of infected waste, we're talking about, inside a clinic or a general practice, it's different.
Yes.
So yeah, and and practical things you need to think about is like when you're going to be serving the infected family member their food. And the other point about entertaining, to go back, a lot of other countries where New Zealand's not at this yet, they're doing things like a rapid antigen test just before going out, because they can change very fast, and that's how the UK were having free access, and they would, before entertaining, going to somebody's house, and we might get to that, where you do your rapid antigen test, which is your self-test on that thing that looks a little bit like a pregnancy test.
Sandhya, I might have to call Jacinda's partner for that. I may not have access to that, right?
Well, none of us have access to that currently, but these are tools which are going to become sort of normal. And importantly, forget the positive rapid antigen test. If you are sick, stay home. Do not spread your germs. Yeah.
Wonderful. Natural versus acquired immunity, which is better? So for people, general people, it is, I got infected, so now my body has become immune, so that is natural immunity. I'm not infected, I get a vaccination, and now I have been immunized. So that is artificial immunity. So there's a lot of debate happening. Is there a consensus?
There has been this debate going on about natural versus acquired immunity, or natural versus artificial immunity, so to say, due to vaccination. Artificial immunity has the drawback that you're using a very few antigens. Natural immunity has the advantage that there are multiple antigens on the virus to which your body is developing. However, artificial immunity has the advantage that it's usually given, the vaccine is given along with substances called adjuvants. These adjuvants potentiate the immune response.
So you're basically saying, when I get the vaccine, there is a higher chance that I might be able to fight the bugs better.
I think the key point is that the natural infection, you put your body at risk of all the side effects of that natural infection, which is death, which is long COVID. And by getting this immunity via vaccination, I think saying artificial is incorrect.
I totally agree with you, Sandhya.
I know that you do, but for the general lay people, I actually think that, and the reason that we did get the vaccination is because through infection, getting immunity is not consistent. Different people will mount a different immune response. Some people will not have as long leading response as other people.
All right,
fantastic.
Sandhya, you made your point.
That, Sandhya.
Yeah,
I was never recommending.
No, I'm just saying other people might misconstrue.
Yeah.
Sorry, you let me finish saying what I'm saying, Sandhya. So what I was saying was, I
love the passion here. It's almost like Arnav Goswami show.
It's not
great.
Nobody wants. Yeah, exactly. It was turning into an Indian TV channel. So we do not recommend getting infected, because getting infected carries all the risk of infection with it.
Yeah, my work needs me to travel, so I'll be taking this flight very soon. So very recently, I've been seeing all the airports being the hotspots, for obvious reasons. So my question is to the doctors, like, what is the best I can do to take all precautions, especially with type of masks and hygiene habits? That will be a good guidance. Thanks.
The most important thing is having a really, really good mask and also eye protection. So don't forget your eyes. The most risky time is if you are going to eat go to the toilet on the plane. So if you can avoid either, for example, if you have a water bottle, if you have a straw, then you can sip it through the mask. If you are to use the toilet, if it's a long flight, I would say make sure that that door is open for a little while and, flush with the seat down because, there are fecal aerosols, and same when you have a party at home, the extractor fan in the bathroom. Just really think about, and that's why on domestic flights now they've stopped serving food, because anytime, and same for your children when they're at school, tell them when they're at school and it's lunchtime, eat outside.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really nice.
For the eye protection, are we just saying safety glasses or?
You could use
shield as well, yeah.
Yeah, or you could just have I told my friend, when she went to India last year and she forgot to get eyes, so she wore her sunglasses the whole way back. She said, everybody stared at me in the plane, but Sandhya told me not to take the glasses off.
Thank you.
But she didn't get COVID.
Whatever your doctors are wearing, Suhas, and I think we could actually have a cottage industry for eye protection.
Even if you have glasses, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just protect your eyes. Otherwise, they have funky, goggles and face shields. You can actually, I only recently discovered the hardware store. The PPE section in the hardware store has lots of P2 N95 masks. So it's not just your medical grade, the ones that the builders use. So P2 is more of an industrial standard. N95 is a medical standard. The other ones to look out for is KF94 is a good one to look out for because that's a Korean, classification, and they have less counterfeit in the KF94 than the KN95.
Sandhya,
which are a Chinese
sorry.
one.
Sorry. Suhas, is there any question that we have missed? I think we've answered.
I just want to say one thing, Primla.
Yes.
That the take-home message is resistance is not futile and preparation is key. So the more you are prepared, the less you will be stressed. The less you are stressed, the better will be your immunity, because the worst thing for your immunity is being in a constant state of stress. Okay, that increases inflammation. So once you understand the new normal, the parameters in which you can lead your life and what your risk appetite is, and you have all those things at home, and it will be a reality very soon that people will get infected, that, you've got your Panadol, you've got your Vicks, you have a pulse oximeter, you have some ready cooked meals, you have enough groceries, your rice, your atta, your whatever, to be able to self-isolate. And currently it's, up to 10 days after the last person in the family tests positive. So it could be a lengthy time that you'll be at home. You have those people that you can fall back on, because it's these practical issues, which is what you've not thought about, like how you're going to set up your house, where's your sick room going to be. These are the things which you should start thinking about now. So as long as you are prepared, you can't be caught unawares, and, we'll all get through this. We'll be fine. There is a lot of hope.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I just want to add to that it does feel a bit isolating and lonely getting the COVID infection, but we just all need to support each other. And if you do need to reach out to help, so your doctors will be available. Most of the GPs probably do have, I know for our GP, I can say we do have a mental health support system set up as well. So we do need to be, reaching out for help when we do need it, so that during COVID, as well as looking after our physical health, we are looking after our mental health as well. And maybe have, contact with some friends as well. So maybe, you don't need to be, when you're infected, you do have some outside contact where you are keeping distance who can help you through this, so that you're not feeling very isolated and lonely. Yeah.
Great words. Thank you. Bhavna?
Agree with everything everyone has said. We are all going to get Omicron. It feels like it. Being prepared is important. Looking after each other is much more important. So please reach out to loved ones. If you do end up in home isolation, talk to people, FaceTime people, call your GP, talk to the nurses. Just make sure you're not feeling lonely. It's hard work, and with families where there are more people in the home, like Sandhya said, just get prepared now. Where is that sick person going to be? Where is the positive person going to be? How are we going to manage the food, the cooking, the cleaning, keeping everyone safe but supported? No blaming, no pointing fingers, no nothing. Just we are going to get through this, but we have to do it together
Yeah.
and safely.